You ever have one of those days when nothing seems to go right? I should have realized that today was one of those days when I got a call to go out to the south of town to unlock a house. I've always disliked that part of town. It's full of rich snobs who think that the sun shines on their ass 24/7. Most of them are know-it-alls as well, so I just knew that this was going to be a bitch of a job. As I rolled up in front of the white McMansion and saw the lady of the house in a terry cloth robe, and not much else, I sighed loudly. Yep, this was going to suck balls for sure. I stepped out of my truck and grabbed my basic pick and bump key set, hoping against hope that this was not going to be a high-security setup like a Multilock or Medeco. Finally, you're here. I told them I needed someone fast and you took over half an hour. Thank goodness I wasn't dying or anything. I pasted a smile on my face, even though I wanted to turn around, get back in my truck and leave. My client, who was doing her very best to impersonate a screech owl, was a fair representation of what I had come to expect of this neighborhood. I would guesstimate late 30s, had some bodywork done, definitely too much primping of the face, and she was your basic trophy wife to some 60-year-old, I would hazard to guess. Sorry, ma'am, got here as quick as I could. Is it the front door you are having issues with? She loudly let me know that it was, so I hurried over to it. Naturally, it was a high-security lock, an angle, which is basically a Chinese knockoff of the Multilock brand. I silently cursed to myself, knowing that it was going to take at least 10 or more minutes to pick. I sent a short prayer to God and Sonny Jesus that it would go fast and that she would be quiet while I worked. Naturally, they both decided I needed a taste of hell and brimstone. Over the next 20 minutes, I heard a litany of what ground the lady's gears. Her husband was probably cheating, her dog had explosive diarrhea all over the dry cleaning, her son was boffing someone on the football team, and here she was, locked out with an important society event, and wasn't I just taking forever to open a simple lock? I tell you, some days you just shouldn't wake up and go to work. Finally the last pin tripped and I spun the lock open. She rushed past me into the house, so I went back to my truck and started writing up the invoice. 5 minutes ticked by, then 10, and I'm wondering what the silly bitch is up to. I walked up to the door, knocked a few times, but heard nothing. Shrugging, I trotted back to my vehicle, ripped up the invoice, and started another. A total of 45 minutes later, I hear the garage door roll up and I see that she is coming towards me dressed in what women in this area code call fashion. So, I hand her the adjusted invoice and she screeches about paying me for the time I waited. What did I expect? Anyway, the rest of the day was on par with the start, so I was more than ready for dinner and time with my wife when my last call was over. I drove home and noticed her car was gone, but I figured she might be at the store or something. I went inside and kicked off my boots, grabbed a cold one, and grabbed some sample locks I had been planning on practicing on. I was almost done with an old Ruco when I heard my wife's car pulling into the driveway. I set it aside and grabbed the old towel I had to wipe my hands on, hoping that she had brought some takeout home because I was starving. I guess when I heard her laughing in what sounded like a male voice speaking in low tones, I should have realized that house fried rice was unlikely tonight. She walked into the dining room with what looked like a college kid in tow. I assume some type of athlete because he was wearing a leather jacket. Probably football, I thought. He looked beefy enough to be a safety or linebacker. My wife gestured for him to sit down across from me, then took a seat next to him. I just looked at the two of them, kind of bemused, wondering what the fuck was going on here. "Hi, honey," my wife said, seemingly full of cheer. When I didn't say anything, she continued, "This is Steve, he goes to A&M and plays football for them." Marcy introduced us. I still didn't say anything, but I got a cold feeling in my gut as I started piling up the locks and putting them in the towel for storage. Marcy has been my wife's best friend from high school on, and she is an unmitigated whore. I've pushed and pushed to split them up, but until about a year ago I had come up short. Long story short, Marcy was married briefly, but when her husband wouldn't go along with swapping in an open marriage, she took him to the cleaners and got a divorce. My wife and I had a horrible fight after that. Took us almost a year to get over, because I told her that her friend was a useless round-heeled slut. My wife finally agreed to stop talking to her and hanging out with her, although it seems now that was a lie. Well, dear, apparently you lied to me about not being friends with Marcy any longer, so now I have to wonder exactly what you were up to this fine evening. I guess that wasn't part of whatever planned dialogue she had put together, because it took her a moment to recover. I went and grabbed another beer while she had a think or two, spinning the cap off with my thumb and dropping back into my chair. I'm really sorry, Dave, I should have told you. But Marcy has been my friend forever, and it wasn't fair of you to try to force me to give her up. She puffed up a bit as she said the last part. I reckon she had time to get back on her script. In any case, that isn't what I brought Steve here tonight to talk about with you. You see, Marcy has explained to me how you are keeping me from being able to explore things that I haven't had a chance to do, and I think we need to discuss our relationship. I pondered this for a second, then looked her straight in the eyes. So, your husband, am holding you back? Could you be a bit more specific? Marcy thinks, and I agree, that our relationship could become so much more special if you allow me to have lovers. She said that you would enjoy seeing a younger, stronger man take me in front of you, that it would make you hornier afterwards. I see, so Marcy, a slut whore who took everything from her husband when he wouldn't agree to a similar plan, persuaded you that I would go for this idea willingly? She nodded happily, thinking that everything was all right. Well, I'm sad to say that Marcy was wrong, my loving wife. I can only assume Steve here is supposed to be the one you are going to put the horns on me with, but I've got a spot of bad news. You see, I don't agree to this, and I'm afraid I am going to have to ask Steve to leave. I paused for a second. Now, you can stay or leave with him, as I don't really give two shits one way or the other. If you stay, though, we are going to have a nice long talk about whether or not we are getting a divorce, or if you are going to give up your stupid cunt of a friend. Steve apparently decided that since my wife appeared to be in complete shock, it was now his time to assert himself. Look, dude, I am going to be deep all in tonight. Now you can either be a nice dude, be quiet, and watch, or I can break your arms and make you clean off my Johnny before I get to her. I chuckled. Steve, let me tell you something. Now I ain't some ex-Navy SEAL or Special Forces guy, but your idea of fighting is probably beating up on kids at school or in a bar. This isn't going to be that type of fight. Now, you can come around the table towards me, and the first thing I'm going to do is take this towel that I've bundled all these nice locks into, and I am going to try to injure you. Like seriously injure you. And if that doesn't work, I'm going for anything else I can get my hands on, such as those knives on the magnetic strip behind me in the kitchen. I smiled at the look on his face. There is always the possibility that you will still beat the shit out of me, but be perfectly clear on this one fact. I am going to keep getting up and coming at you with anything that can fuck up your nice football career until you put me down and out, and, Steve, putting someone down and all the way out is usually close to killing them. So you might beat me down and end up doing a stretch in prison, where your rugged good looks will make you plenty of friends in the showers. I set down my beer and laid my hand on the towel. So, I guess what you have to ask yourself is my loving, sweet wife worth losing your career or freedom over? I guess in the end it wasn't, because he turned and walked towards the door, slamming it behind him. I got up and locked the deadbolt, shaking a bit from the adrenaline coursing through me from the possible fight. I turned around and went back into the dining room and sat down, looking at my wife. So, I guess this is when you decide if you are leaving with him or calling your friend and seeing if she will let you stay with her until the divorce is over. But, Dave, I don't want a divorce. I love you, this was for us, she wailed. I reached over and patted her hand. Sorry, dearest, you don't get to make those decisions anymore. She was crying and choking back snot, so I reached over into her purse and got her phone. I looked through her contact list until I found Marcy's middle name. Apparently this was supposed to fool me, but I knew her full name from when she had her husband served. He had come to our and commiserated over some beers, telling me to watch out for Marcy's influence on my wife. Apparently I had fucked that up. Go team me. I waited for Marcy to pick up, counting the rings. A silky voice came on the line. So, how did Dave like watching Steve give that big love time? I snorted. Sorry, the wife is a bit distressed at the moment. Steve decided that he preferred not having broken joints, so he left. I need you to come pick up your fellow whore and take her home with you until we sort out our divorce. I clicked in on the phone and tossed it back into my wife's purse. As I walked into the kitchen to grab some garbage bags, I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife, then to the sky. I just fucking knew this was going to be a bad day. What would have done better? Comment down below in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that we stay motivated. Go ahead and listen to the next story, which has the perfect ending added to it.